Let me start out by thanking all of you who left a question making this video possible. Let's begin. How does the mob feel about tattoos now, and has their tattoo policy changed? I've never known there to be a policy regarding tattoos, and just about every guy I knew, even the old timers, all had tattoos. If there was one thing you could have said to Neil Migliore, what would it be and why? Oh, that's easy. I would tell him you were 100% right, because Neil would curse the Lucchese family on a steady basis. This person wants to know why guys with the birth name Vincent go by the nickname Jimmy, and he gave a few examples, such as Vincent Jimmy Blue Eyes Aloe and Vincent Jimmy Red Caserta. I don't have a definitive answer, but most people of Italian descent are named Vincenzo, and supposedly some were called Cens for short, which sounded at times like James, and people started calling them Jimmy. What was your reaction when you heard about the mafia cops? Were you surprised that cops would go that far for the cash? Nothing really surprises me, especially when it comes to money. As the saying goes, it can make the blind see. Does every boss and his administration have permanent FBI surveillance attached to them? I would say that the top three people in a family do have constant surveillance. I mean, that's a given. Do you think that Ronnie G would make a good boss someday? In the present day, I think that Justin Bieber could be a good boss. But all joking aside, in my opinion, Ronnie possesses zero diplomacy, a quality a boss should have. Did you ever meet or have an opinion of Joseph Chirico, who owns Marco Polo in Carroll Gardens? One afternoon, Johnny Sideburns and I had lunch in Marco Polo. Joe didn't know who we were, as we never met him. But while walking back from the bathroom, I noticed him standing behind the bar, and I nodded my head. We started talking, and he asked what I was drinking, and poured me a scotch. When I returned to the table, Sideburns seen another drink in my hand, and said, "What are you hustling drinks at the bar?" Joe seemed like a nice guy, and I didn't know him to form any opinion. Has the modern-day families ever gone to war with each other? No. There was a time when the Lucchese's had major issues with the Gambinos. But as I mentioned in the previous comment, diplomacy prevailed. Back in your time, what were the Lucchese hangouts in Bay Ridge and Bensonhurst? I don't know about Bensonhurst, but in Bay Ridge, we stayed in the Pearl Room. A lot of guys went to Ponte Vecchio, and Mikey DeSantis stayed in this bagel shop on 80th and 3rd Avenue. Did you know Vincent Matalone to be a Colombo member? Some sources are claiming he's a captain in the family following the recent passing of Salvatore Cambria. I knew Vinny the boxer. He was always a nice guy. In fact, I did a short video about him, and I'll add a link in the description. Sally Bread and his crew, including Vinny, would stay in my family's restaurant. I assumed Vinny was around Sal, but he was not a member back then. And I repeat, he was not a member. Did they straighten him out after my departure? It's possible. Segueing into the next question, what are your thoughts and opinions on the passing of Colombo captain Sally Bread? What can I say? Sally Bread was another nice guy, an earner, not a tough guy. And I was sorry to hear that he passed away. I always liked him. What are the roles and responsibilities of an acting captain? An acting captain, to put it in simple terms, is an assistant to the captain, attending meetings or sit-downs if the captain's not available, sending and receiving messages from the crew, and helping deal with the day-to-day activities with the crew. Was Joseph DiNapoli a big earner for the family, and what rackets was he involved in? I'm not sure exactly what Joe was involved in. I know back in the day he pushed packages. But here's a fact. If you had his money, you'd throw yours away. All of the DiNapolis were big earners, mostly in construction. When a guy shows up at dinner, a club, or Christmas party, looking scruffy and unshaven, is something said to him. If you show up like that, the probability of somebody saying something to you is high. There seems to be some animosity between the southern Italians, such as Sicilians, Napolitans, and Calabrians. Is there a chance a person wouldn't be made if he was of northern Italian heritage? Guys in that life come from all parts of Italy and Sicily, and there are a lot of people whose families are from Naples. So it doesn't matter what part of Italy or Sicily you or your family comes from. Is it still a rule that you only make a new member when a member dies and you fill that slot? If so, how does a smaller family grow in numbers? A new member is supposed to be inducted by taking the place of a member who passed away. Certain families, smaller ones, were only permitted so many members. Here's a related question. Do the families still send a list around of proposed members to all the families before making new members? Or is it just mostly passed around the family of the proposed member? Or is passing around a list a thing of the past? A name not only gets passed around to the family proposing the person, but it's offered to the other families as well. At least during my time, this was still a practice. If a member's making plenty of money through legitimate means, then why won't he sell whatever illicit rackets he has and continue living life while kicking up through his legit proceeds? Do you know anyone who has actually done this? I don't personally know anyone who is doing this, but for instance, guys like the Avelinos have so much legitimate income, there's no need for them to be involved in any rackets, and they could just hand over money every now and then. Can a member deny past crimes to his superiors to prevent prosecution, like what happened with Vinnie Gorgeous and Joe Messino? The predicament Vinnie Gorgeous found himself in was that his boss was the one questioning him, and unfortunately for him, he was wired. Putting that incident aside, no one should be questioning things of that nature, but more crucially, a person also shouldn't be discussing things like that either. Do all mafia members have life insurance policies? Seems like a sensible thing to have if you're in that life. I honestly don't know those personal details. I would assume most guys with families have life insurance in the event that anything happens. Do you have any connections or heard of crime families in Montreal, Canada? I have no connections in Canada. And of course, I've heard of and know about organized crime in that country. How much backstabbing, plotting, and gossip, etc., did you witness within your own crew, and how much plotting was there between crews? I believe if you listen to most of my videos, I speak about all of that taking place quite often. Whether within a crew, or crew to crew, or family to family, treachery in general is a way of that life. Here's a corresponding question. Do the 5 families really hate each other? Or is it like a brotherhood where everyone needs to get along no matter what? I wouldn't say families hate each other. Naturally, there will always be issues, beefs that take place. And yes, there's supposed to be a brotherhood. Many guys intermingle with other families, and that respect is mutual. So in that sense, there is a brotherhood, or at least on the surface there is. Please remember to like this video if you haven't already, as it helps with the algorithm. And if anyone wants to show their appreciation for videos like this, or more crucially, help me take a stand against the sabotaging of this podcast, you can do so by the Super Thanks icon down below, or the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. And for the final question, when you were given a false label and the administration finally acknowledged their mistake, did the administration punish the guy or guys who started the false label? What was the punishment, if there was any? I've spoken about this subject before. The only indication I received that they learned what was being said was false was a text from Butch Arpino that I received while I was in Savannah, basically telling me they wanted to see me and that there was a huge mistake made. The armchair quarterbacks, who have all the answers, as well as what they would do in that situation, know nothing, because to their good fortune, they've never have, nor will be in that situation. I know the truth. As for the repercussions, there were none whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it was an indication I needed in order for me to consider speaking with them. They never gave me that, and I wouldn't meet with them. But at this point in time, I would only have one thing to say to them. Thank you.